Women. Define crazy in terms of men you've dated. I dated a hippie artist kind of guy who drove a VW bus and wrote bad poetry. He was a model student and very nice to me in the beginning. We got together, and a few months later he started telling me these stories about people he had harmed. He said he'd cut the gas lines in his grandma's house and she passed away. He said he'd pushed his best friend off a cliff, etc. I wasn't sure if I should believe all this, but when he finally said that I knew too much and he needed to get rid of me, I told my school counselors. The police came, questioned him, and hauled him off for a psych eval. Turns out he was schizophrenic. He went on meds, and his parents shipped him off to military school. The next time I saw him, it was ranting Republican. Another guy I dated was also crazy. He was a pathological liar and told everyone he had been struggling with cancer for years. He also told us wild stories about famous people he had hung out with. At some point, he got really fixated on me. I just wanted to be friends. I fooled around with another guy. One day, my boyfriend came to a party where a crazy guy was at also. Crazy guy grabbed a weapon and a tire iron, and chased my boyfriend around the apartment complex until the police came. Safe to say, you are a magnet for crazy, girl. Story 2. I caught him collecting my hair and saving it in an envelope. So basically what happened was that I was leaving the room and turned around to see him picking up a couple of my hairs off his bed and sticking them in an envelope he had on his desk, which, by the way, already contained something of a collection. I asked him to stop and please, dear God, just throw them away. But his response was basically, "But they're so pretty. I won't do it." Yeah, our brief relationship was pretty much over at that point, although I should have known something was up when he licked my armpit a couple of days beforehand. Oh, and for the record, I'm strawberry blonde and the hairs were from my head. Lol. Story 3. I dated a guy that was a very definition of a possessive boyfriend. He saw any interaction I had with a man as a threat and would often threaten these guys if they didn't stop talking to me. He also accused me of cheating on him constantly and was always suspicious and often cruel. Yelling, pushing me around. We'd been dating for about 2 months or so and I found out he was cheating on me. We'd both agreed on monogamy. This wasn't part of the deal, so I broke up with him. A week later, he called me to say he got tested and was HIV positive. We were mostly careful and used rubbers when we had been together, but there were times when we hadn't. I spent 2 months freaking out, and after getting tested a couple of times at the end of the incubation period, or whatever it's called, thankfully found out I'm not positive. I found out a few months later from common friends that he had been bragging about how he got me with a false HIV story as a way of seeking revenge for the breakup. Thankfully, I'm dating a wonderfully sane and rational guy now. The kind of guy who just epitomizes nice, you know? And he definitely gets me excited, so I lucked out. Good for you. Story 4. I got one about a guy. He was a friend, and this is what he did to his girlfriend. As a result, we're no longer friends. Bugged her computer. Would sit for hours, like more than 8 per day, just waiting to watch her MSN convos, go through her emails, etc., etc. Used to read her journal when she was not paying attention and he was over. He was snooping and discovered it. Using these methods, he would surprise her with gifts that he discovered she wanted, things she would mention to friends she wanted a boyfriend to do. Made him seem perfect to her. Wanted me to harm him with a weapon so he could tell her he got in a bar brawl. She was a very young party girl he was prepped with no clue. And make him seem tough. Started trying to create his own from pharmaceuticals that he ordered online from India and other places. This way he could impress her. He would obsess for hours over a one-line email that said, "Too tired to hang out tonight. Tomorrow's better." And ask me, "But what do you think it means?" Over and over and over. Finally, it ended when he read that she had cheated on him twice. He lied to her and said that I had told him, citing that I had a mutual friend with her, which was a lie. Scary thing is that she never found out. So they were both red flags? Does that cancel out? Story 5. I've dated a string of crazy guys. Most recent ex-boyfriend is a police officer for the city I live in. He broke up with me in January so he could start dating the girl he'd been cheating on me with. I didn't find this out until after, or else we'd have been done a lot sooner. He would still call me all the time and would want to hang out because he missed me. It got to the point that I'd see him calling and I just wouldn't pick up or acknowledge his calls. There were about 3 or so different instances where he pulled me over in traffic so he could ask, "Why haven't you called me back?" I filed a half-hearted complaint with the city and the police precinct, but it didn't go anywhere because he's one of their golden boys. Story 6. There's the guy I dated for just a couple months who decided that me breaking up with him was a good reason to end himself. Called me and texted me over 50 times in an hour. I kept him on the phone for hours while he went on about how horrible his life was now that I was breaking up with him. The call got cut off at one point, so I called the cops and told them there he was. And I got an angry phone call from him later over the embarrassment of them banging on his door in the middle of the night. He was staying in a hotel on a work assignment. He further convinced himself that I had been cheating on him. Not true. Got really angry when I told his friends about his attempt because I thought they needed to know to be able to support him. Haven't really been in relationships with other crazy people, thankfully. I've gone on dates with a handful, but those were so fleeting I don't remember details very well. Story 7. A few years ago, I dated a guy that was a tad insecure. Even though he knew I would be at work, practice, or class, he would leave at least 18 messages on my phone. I don't think a 1 hour class deserves an average of 10 missed calls, and every time I sneezed, coughed, was injured in practice, etc., it was always his fault, and he would cry and try to make himself pay for it. It was as if he couldn't keep me protected or inside enough. It didn't last long. Were you dating a 5-year-old? Story 8. My ex. Violent, prone to mood swings, crying, and physical and emotional cruelty. Over the course of 3 years with him, I gained quite a significant bit of weight. He wanted me to get fat so that no one else would love me. I wasn't allowed to leave the house with the exception of school and work, unless it was with him. His rage was terrifying. Just thinking about how mad he would get over simple things makes me feel sick to my stomach. Went out on a date with this guy, and within 10 minutes, he's talking about making a family together. I'd just gotten released from a 13-month vacation in a Crowbar hotel and was just interested in getting some. We hooked up a couple of times, and then I told him I just wasn't interested in being his girlfriend. He freaked out on me, telling me that I was only breaking up with him because my family is well off, which was hilarious because we most definitely were not. He refused to get a job because 95% of the options for employment where he lived were beneath him. When I started dating my now boyfriend, he sent me messages telling me that I was only dating him for his money, which is also hilarious because he didn't have any. He also refused to go anywhere unless he was completely dressed in black, once refusing to go to the grocery store because his socks were in black. Apparently he's been accepted to Mensa and brags about that quite a bit. That just proves to me that the requirements to be a part of Mensa aren't that stringent. Story 9. Crazy is the guy that installed the keylogger in my computer to catch me cheating, which he never did. This is something I just don't understand. If I thought someone was cheating on me, I wouldn't waste the effort to try to catch them in the act. I would just leave and save myself from the drama. If they were giving me reasons not to trust them, then I'm wasting my time. I don't see why more people don't have this opinion. Who the heck wants to be with someone that you can't trust? I've seen too many girls and guys lose their heads over stuff like this. Insecurity is a witch. Story 10. I dated this guy for a pretty long time. He was pretty crazy the entire time, but the pinnacle of his craziness came after we weren't together anymore. A chunk of our relationship took place when I was a teenager and him in his early 20s. The breakup was hard on both of us, but very necessary. We were living together at the time of the split and had a ton of stuff that fell into the ours category. I left most of it to him as I was desperate to be free of him. There were a few things, though, that were expressly mine that I forgot. A full 4 months after we broke up, we met so he could give me back a few things. We sat at a picnic table across from one another and he handed me a box. I started to dig through it and found some old pictures. Awesome. Some CDs I loved. Fantastic. Assorted ticket stubs. Oh, fun. Other stuff like that. Nostalgia-tastic. At the bottom of the box, my hand grazed a C-shaped piece of metal. I pulled it out and recognized it instantly as a metal wire and figured it was just some junk that ended up in the box. I put the things I wanted in a tote bag and passed the box back to him, and put the wire in the ashtray sitting on the table. I look up and Max is looking at me with this weird, wounded expression. He trembles. Do you know what that is? He gestures to the ashtray. I shrug. An underwire garment thingy? Why? He gives me this dirty, mean, and aggressive look and tells me that the wire was the wire from your midnight blue and silver gray push-up demi cup. His exact words. That was a garment that I had owned 5 years earlier. 5. It was also the garment I had on when I lost my V-card to him. This whole thing wasn't weird enough. He then took the wire out of the ashtray and put it back in the box. Then he and the box left. Okay, buddy. Story 11. I dated a guy who was about 50 pounds overweight and liked to tell me I could stand to lose a few pounds. I was 5'6" and 130 pounds. Also dated a guy who got mad at me because I bought him socks for Christmas because after noticing his socks all had holes in them, he was really strange about his clothes and always wore the same old sweater over and over, even when someone bought him something new. Maybe it had a lot of sentimental value. Story 12. When I was 18, I dated my friend's older brother for a couple of years. I had had a thing for him since I was 14, so I was pretty excited to be dating him. It was sweet at first, then he got kind of clingy, then when I told him I needed some space, he got really angry and started screaming at me, telling me I was a witch, that he knew I'd been cheating on him. I got really mad and told him to get lost. Then I'd come home from work and he'd be waiting outside my house for me. That was always fun. Once I got a ride home with a friend, a woman, and we were just sitting in the car laughing about our day, and then When I got out and started walking down the path to my back door, he creepily emerged from the bushes, where he'd been hiding and watching me, and again accused me of sleeping with other people. He was jealous in a crazy sort of way, like when I'd go out back to the garden and he'd think I was going out to show off to the neighbors. Anyway, I was young, stupid, and deep in the throes of puppy love. I wised up and am now in a much more healthy relationship. Story 13. I dated a guy for 2 months who decided that never call me again meant that he should call me every day for another 2 months and send me weird text messages and emails about seeing us maybe getting married someday and not having enough God in our relationship. Never once did religion factor into our relationship. When I finally blocked his calls, he then called me again a year after I dumped him and left no message, and again a few months ago, this now 2.5 years later, to leave me a nonchalant voicemail about how he was back in town and wanted to know if we could meet up. Never once answered a call or text from him. I mean, who clings that much to someone you're dating for only a couple months? Story 14. Well, I didn't date him, but my mom did. I was just unlucky enough to be a single teen stuck in the house at the time. I'm not too social, but I can smell a sociopath 10 miles away. And I didn't like this guy. Oblivious mom convinced herself that it was because I was afraid he would take my dad's place and all that horse crap, which had nothing to do with it at all. The guy was a schmuck. Well, they started dating, and he started borrowing things from my mom and helping her with all sorts of stuff that she didn't need, but he insisted no human being could live without it, and he was infinitely wise, and she believed that this manly man surely knew better than her, so she spent a crap load of money on stupid crap that only stupid men over 50 would find relevant. And if she wanted to see him, she could drive that 45-minute drive and see him. He had no car, and if he took that scooter to see her, she had better damn well pay for his gas as well. Still no reaction from my mom, who was just so thankful a man finally was showing her attention. Or so she thought. He got mad when I pointed out it was more like her wallet. Apparently she told him this, and all of a sudden he got this great idea. It was about time that I should move out. I was 17 at the time, and he could move in. Luckily my mom liked me a little more than him, so I gotta stay. Well, then stuff in my room started to move around on its own. I pointed it out, and mom was like, "Oh, it's so messy, how would you know?" So I planted a hate letter right front in the top drawer of my desk. To schmuck. Well, funny, because a week after that, he was in a rage over me. The best thing was how schmuck couldn't even explain to my mom why I was such a problem. Going in my room and reading private stuff on my desk would be a deal breaker. So instead, he started trying to sweet talk me, getting me to spend my money on great deals that he could help with so we could bond, at least according to the sales pitch he gave my mom. So one day my mom crosses his line. God forbid. She hugged him, went home and called 3 days later. He'd contacted a lawyer and was threatening to sue my mother for breaking his arm and shoulder while hugging him. My mom says he can buzz off. He then starts calling, proclaiming that she owes him money for the days he couldn't work because of his broken shoulder. Turns out, schmuck fell off a ladder at home and sprained the thing and decided to make money off my mom. My mom stopped talking to him after that, except for Christmas and her birthday for a few years after that. He would call and leave messages on the machine, telling my mom how much he hopes she rots in hell and that she still owes him money and then have a nice day. Did anybody say sociopath? I did. Several times. Well, some lonely people are desperate and don't see red flags. Story 15. I went on one day with a very nerdy guy who tried to convince me that he and his friends used to try to get hit by cars for money. This was so painfully and obviously untrue. It was difficult to sit still until the drink was finished and I could go home. One guy stood me up on the third date, because his new Mercedes had arrived at the dealer and he wanted to drive around fast by himself. I heard nothing from him all night. Got an apologetic voicemail the next day. Okay, fine. I decided he wasn't into me and never called him back. 4 months later, I got an email suggesting we meet up for intimacy. For 2 years, this guy would send me suggestive emails every 3 or 4 months, even though I never wrote him back. Rich people are freaking crazy. And I stopped dating anyone with serious money after that. Story 16. I'm not a woman, but I had to tell the story of a guy I knew from high school we called Crazy Billy. He was the nicest guy sober, but was crazy when drinking. When he turned 21, he started drinking heavily. He bought a Tarot and moved into the woods and was not seen for several months. No one cared, including his psycho mom who had 30 to 40 cats running wild in their house. One day at another friend's party, he showed up out of nowhere with a girlfriend who lived with him in the tent. In less than 20 minutes, Crazy Bill started yelling at his girlfriend and was threatening to harm her. He kicked him out of the house immediately. He started pounding on the door rhythmically every 2 seconds, repeating in a monotonous tone, "Let me in. I won't hurt you." After a few minutes, the pounding turned into a fast flurry of fists in the door and suddenly stopped. A moment later, we heard a different type of screaming, which sounded more like a child in pain. Help, I just hurt myself. His stupid girlfriend then swung open the door and we witnessed Crazy Bill standing in the pool of red liquid. Apparently, he had stolen a large weapon earlier and had it in his trench coat. After being kicked out, he was pounding it on the door. There's still dents in the door from the handle. When he started pounding faster, he lost his grip on the weapon and it fell straight down. His girlfriend started babying him and he started apologizing. It was pathetic. When the cops came, they saw a pile of cigarette butts around him, which he had apparently attempted to use. Looks like quote-unquote crazy Bill needed some serious help. Story 17. It is impossible for me to cuddle in bed. I don't mind a little spooning before bed or after intimacy or on the couch while watching a movie, but when it comes time for me to sleep, it is impossible for me to fall asleep while being held. The only way I can sleep is on my belly without anyone touching me. Anyway, I had one boyfriend break up with me over this, and my current one has these temper tantrums some nights and yells, "You don't love me," and goes and sleeps on the couch and texts me how I don't love him or turns on the TV real loud and won't come back into bed until I tell him I love him. Seriously, I've never done anything this remotely freaking crazy. Just like the other person. Are you dating a 5-year-old? Story 18. Am I the only one posting as the crazy ex-guy? Anyway, I was in a relationship with a woman who had a kid. Loved them more than anything, but I drank a lot. I used to get jealous of everything she did that involved another guy. I checked her social media or phone a few times and even email. Nothing bad either. I think it was because of a huge lie she told me at the start of the relationship, which she had a good reason for. I just had stupid trust issues. We would fight a lot, I was scared and hurt her a lot, so I moved out and gave her the house and we'd try and sort things out by spending half the week together or whatever. So one night, I'm so intoxicated I fell asleep on the bus, woke up on the other side of town and walked home. We were meant to meet up early that night and go home together. Anyway, she didn't believe I just fell asleep and I couldn't remember what I had done, so when I got to the door and she wouldn't let me in, I started kicking it. When I got in, I ran up to check the bed as if there was going to be another dude there. Yep, I know, I'm a schmuck. Then I started to hurt her, until a neighbor started banging the wall, then I went through to his door. Anyway, this was a few days before Christmas, yet she still loved me, so it was forgiven, and I got to spend Christmas with the three of us. I went to the doctor's about the drink and stopped. I was crying for maybe a week after what I had done. We lasted another 6 months or so, and we broke up. We don't talk, and she's getting married. I'm glad she's happy. I think of them every day and try to stay away from relationships as I don't want to be a schmuck again. Maybe with no drink involved. Or you stop the pity party and work on yourself and make sure it never happens again. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 19. Let's see. I didn't date this guy, but he attempted to date me. His attempt at pursuing me. Sitting next to me in the class we shared, he wrote poetry about me and about his intense feelings for me. Called me in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. Changed his class schedule to be the same as mine, changing his major in the process. Followed me out of every building on campus. Seriously, no matter where I went, there he was. Asked me personal and intimate questions about my physical relationship with my then boyfriend. Wrote me a 6-page essay about how he was trying to get over his crush on me, including the term furious. Story 20. I've had a few real winners. One was really interested in trying something new. I wasn't. He talked me into giving it a try and it hurt so bad it made him stop and said never again. He got this idea in his head that it was only because I was too tense and I needed to relax and then I would enjoy it. So naturally the best way to make that happen was to do it when I wasn't expecting it. Oops, wrong hole. Became pretty standard during intimacy. When I tried to break up with him, he had a total meltdown and I stayed with him purely out of fear that he would hurt himself, but started dating other people when I was traveling over the summer. I ended things when I got home and he was on better meds and could handle it. He got all our friends in the breakup. 2 had a real aversion to body hair, which makes me the very last girl he should date. He shaved his whole body so he pretty much always felt like Velcro. After avoiding me for a couple of weeks, I finally cornered him and got him to say what was wrong and he came up with, "Have you ever considered waxing this?" Indicating his upper lip. He'd been avoiding me because he didn't know how to tell me that it had grossed him out the way my mustache tickled him when we kissed. I've made peace with my body hair situation, so I laughed and said maybe he was right. He was so offended because I laughed instead of being upset that he dumped me. Bro was expecting you to beg for him back. Story 21. He singled me out and sweet-talked me into getting together with him. He was an alcoholic who frequently drove while intoxicated and sometimes spiked, too. After I confronted him about his drinking, he completely changed the subject by out of the blue confessing his schizophrenic hallucinations and swearing me to secrecy. I found out from mutual acquaintances that he had been wildly promiscuous before we got together. I told him I was too young to sleep with him. He laughed at me and mistreated me months later. After I broke up with him, for several years, he dated girls who suspiciously resembled me, even though he kept getting older. And it creeped me out to see how similar I was to those girls. We had or have a lot of the same taste in books, music, etc., and even had birthdays just a few days apart. Story 22. I dated a user for about a year and a half. Throughout that time, he'd pick me up from work while spiked, dated his ex on and off behind my back. He'd regularly call me incredibly messed up, asking me to walk to his house at 3 a.m. in the middle of January. He hit me a couple of times in front of friends. He was fired from our work from hitting me in the parking lot and then stole my car when he was removed from the property. While driving my car one night because I was intoxicated, he deliberately sideswiped some kid for not moving out of the way and broke my side view mirror. He jumped out of my car while it was moving once. He elbowed me in the side of the head once while I was driving because he'd gotten stung by a bee and thought I'd put out my cigarette on him. He threw a 3-foot apparatus at my head because he was in an argument over the phone with his other girlfriend. He routinely attempted to get me pregnant by sabotaging protections. I eventually moved out and got married. He still had my cell number at the time. My friends back home found out. I got a call from his other girlfriend saying he just harmed her because she was the reason I left. He then stole 2 of my tattoo designs and proceeded to get the same exact thing on himself. Thank God it didn't give birth to his baby. Thank God indeed. Story 23. I dated a guy I had known since kindergarten when I was 17. He had some daddy issues, among other things. When we were in Catholic school together, he went 8 years without having a single friend. He was considered fat, creepy, and ugly. I was also a bit of a nerd, and too chicken to stand up for him. We met again junior year, and he was a whole different guy. We became friends, and I fell for him instantly. I was pure, and he was, not. I think the bad stuff started when I decided to give it up to him. He would have intimacy, and he would tell me I sucked at it. He would yell at me for not doing things right. I had no say in the matter. I never changed places, and there was no after-intimacy cuddling. With that experience prior, I assumed this was normal. Then things got worse. He would belittle me in public and tell me to act like we were not dating when we were around people. He would put down my opinions and tell me I was unattractive and stupid. He would drink heavily a few times a week and come over to my house crying. It was weird because he was normally a tough guy, but give him some vodka and he would start telling me he was in love with me and overview his dramatic relationship with his dad. Once, he begged me not to go away to the college I'd gone into because he would miss me and needed me. I was stupid and young, and I ended up staying. I stayed, even after he asked another girl to prom while we were dating. His explanation? He said you didn't know if you wanted to go. Ultimately, he strung me along and dumped me while continuing to manipulate my feelings so that I would buy him things. I was the only one in the relationship that ever had a job. Turns out he was cheating on me with not only my best friend, but 5 other girls that I know of. He was telling them that I was a psycho and that I was forcing him to stay in the relationship. To this day, I've never been able to fully appreciate intimacy, and I always feel like I'm not good or sexy enough for my partner. Story 24. I had to share this story, even though it isn't mine. I had a friend, Kay, that went to church with this crazy guy. He was about 20 years older than her, and he began asking her out. She always declined, politely, because she wasn't interested. Suddenly, things took a turn for the bizarre. In church one Sunday, he stood up in front of the congregation and prophesied that God told him he would marry Kay in 6 weeks. He named a specific date and everything. Kay was extremely freaked out and told him it would never happen and that if he didn't retract what he said, she would get a restraining order. Didn't bother her again for a while, but 6 weeks later, he stood up in front of the congregation again and re-prophesied, saying that he would still marry Kay but that he had gotten the date wrong and provided a new God-mandated date. He began to stalk her steadily after this and told her that she was defying God's will by not marrying him. She finally succeeded in getting a restraining order on him. He didn't really leave her alone, but he did stop prophesying their pending nuptials. He eventually left the church after trying the same thing with another woman. Basically got kicked out by the church elders. Good riddance. Story 5. I had an ex who was into crossdressing and asked me to help him pick out garments. Quite funny with him being quite overweight and hairier than a monkey. And he insisted on shaving everything, except his head and arms, in my bathroom. Never cleaning up and keeping his huge ashtray of hair removal products in my bathroom so his roommates or friends wouldn't find out. It was pretty gross. Not really crazy, but ew, nonetheless. When he decided to use weapons in bed, along with way too rough acting and kept telling me how much I enjoyed it, that creeped me out enough to leave. Story 26. My last ex, being in the military, gave me a set list rules of how to handle my intimate life while he was gone. I could sleep with other girls, but I couldn't tell him, and I couldn't cheat on him. And if I ever find out you cheated on me, I'll freaking end you. For various reasons, after he came back from deployment, including him reading my texts or writing over my shoulder, demanding to know who I was texting, throwing a fit over the fact I'd made friends with a male coworker while he was gone. And no, didn't sleep with said coworker. Came out that he was a raging racist. I broke it off with him. About a week after that, I told him I thought it was best we not even bother being friends, since we were obviously incompatible as human beings and not just a couple. He agreed. Didn't hear from him for 6 to 7 months, and out of the blue I got a random text from a number I didn't recognize. Figured out who he was due to the way he texted, and he started asking how he was doing. We should hook up sometime. If I really want, he could get his friend over for a triad. Told him the only way he was getting a triad was if it was with another man, preferably a black man. Oddly, I haven't heard from him since. Well, he didn't want to be outdone. What do you mean? Story 27. When I was younger, I started dating someone I met online. He was 18 and experiencing homelessness, living in his car. We'd only see each other if I gave him money for gas and food or if he needed to shower at my house. He'd say hurtful things and use very offensive words. He was manipulative and took advantage of me. The worst thing he ever did was injure me with a small, thin blade. I'm not even sure what it was. Then he pulled over on the side of the highway and left me there for half an hour without my phone or purse. He came back and apologized. I was still young and didn't know how to handle the situation. It was definitely my fault that I let it go on for 3 years. I tried to break up with him and he would threaten to harm himself, me, or my family, so I was really scared he might actually do those things. Maybe I'm the one who was wrong? When I went to college, we broke up for good. He still contacts me through social media, but I haven't seen him since. He was a very troubled individual. Story 28. My first boyfriend had an imaginary Johnson size problem, and he stressed a lot about it. Also, I couldn't finish no matter what, and he always blamed it on his size. One day, while having intimacy with him and not enjoying it so much, he pulled away and asked me to take a good look at it and say truthfully if it is too small. So I kept staring at it for like 5 minutes, and the more I stared, the smaller it seemed. After quite a long while, I gathered my courage and blurted, "Yeah, it looks kind of small." Error. He made my life miserable for the rest of the time we dated. Should have doubled down on it and say it was microscopic. Story 29. During our relationship, he always did harmful stuff to me. Every time I tried to break up with him, he'd go crazy and threaten to end it all, so I'd give in. When I finally gathered up the courage to dump the freaking psycho, he tried to end himself in my bathroom. I called the cops. He locked the door, so I picked the lock and dragged him out. He jumped up and hurt me in the shoulder and grabbed me by the hair. I got away from him and opened the front door for the cops, who wrapped his arms with my towels and dragged him out of there. It was actually bizarre to watch. Him being 5'10" and like 120 pounds, actually managing to fight off 2 big, strong cops. As an aside, when the cops showed up, they thought that I was the one who was attempting to end it all because I had so much mess on me. Anyway, they offered to call victim services to help clean up, but I declined. Spent the next few hours picking up broken glass and cleaning my bathroom or living room carpet. It wasn't until I was done that I realized I still had his mess on my face and all in my hair. For about a year afterwards, he'd call or email or IM, etc. me from random numbers and accounts, so I didn't know it was him, telling me about his latest attempt. He tried about 6 times that I know about. He would send me photos of buckets filled with his mess. For one of the attempts, he rented a freaking helium tank from a party supply store, stuck in a plastic bag with a nozzle inside, and turned it on. All 6 attempts failed? Sounds like a skill issue. Story 30. I dated my ex for almost 3 years. I ended the relationship because neither of us were happy. The guy was not cruel or anything like that. We just weren't happy. We fought a lot, verbally, and I just had enough. Of course, after breaking up with him, I found out he was psychotic. He started stalking me, sending me creepy phone calls describing what I wore to bed the night before. I went through all of my old journals and wrote that I was a lying witch over every page in ink. I ended up throwing all of them away. It disturbed me so much. He followed me, and a date I had to blockbuster and hurt my poor date in the back of the head. Police were called. The best part? I found out he had been lying to me the entire time we were dating. Not about big things, little things, things that were simply no reason to lie about. He said he was born in Ireland, lived there till he was 5 and moved to the States. In reality, he had lived in South Carolina his entire life. He said his dad passed away when he was 9, his dad passed away when he was 14, etc., etc. All of this came out after I dumped him, which just makes me glad I dumped him when I did. Story 31. I've been dating a guy, X, for almost a year, and he decided to move across the country to get his music career started. As we'd been talking about marriage, I was pretty upset about it, but I had 3 months to prepare myself. X moves, I start seeing someone else. X then begins sending me things in the mail. CDs of bands I love, etc. We're still on good terms and talk every so often. 2 months later, he moved back. I run into him at a concert with my new boyfriend, and X calls me after the show, screaming expletives at me and telling me what a schmuck new boy is. So I pretty much told him to shove it. He sends me a present for my birthday with the letters cut out of magazines, but with a message that I know would only be from him. I do not respond. Fast forward 2 years, now single again. He finds me. We go out for a beer, laugh about how much dating me apparently screwed with his head, have a little too much to drink, pass out on his couch. I wake up to a flash going off, but several instincts kick in so I don't move a muscle. Yeah, dude was taking pictures of me while I was asleep. I leave and confront him the next day via email and tell him not to contact me again. Ban him on everything possible, and he still finds a way to send me a message, apologizing and blaming the alcohol. Yeah, there may be a restraining order in my future. Story 32. It was my first year in college. He wore a Minotaur cologne, most amazing blue eyes, and just absolutely gorgeous. We started chatting, and he seemed absolutely normal. I was incredibly attracted to him, so before you know it, we were kind of kissing by the lockers in between classes. Then things started getting a little weird. He's a Wiccan. That's cool, that's fine. I'm now an atheist and couldn't care less, but back then I was still shedding some Christian beliefs, so it felt a little daring. So sure, why not? He said he believes in reincarnation. Okay, a little strange, but I wasn't going to marry the guy. A couple more days of hotness would be okay. In fact, this was his 32nd reincarnation. He wanted to be a history teacher. Figured he would be really great at it since he lived through it all personally. Yeah, I started backing off at this point. Unfortunately, that's when he got persistent. Lured me into his car, locked the doors, and said he was going to cast a spell on me. I call BS, but in my mind, frantically trying to find a way to get out of the situation. Every time I tried to unlock the doors, he'd lock them again. I finally said if he didn't let me out of the car, I would go straight to the police. Fortunately, he backed off and let me go. I had a couple of my other male friends go up to him and tell him if they saw him again within 50 feet of me, they would hurt him. The best part is, it never occurred to me until years later that his name was completely fake. Yes, I actually believed his name was Christian Calendar, with that spelling. So glad I'm not so naive anymore, but I do wonder whatever happened to him. I don't. Story 33. The first guy I ever slept with was perfectly normal, until he asked me to marry him. I was 17 and had this insane notion that marrying the first guy you sleep with is romantic despite the fact that I wasn't in love with him. I just thought he was a nice guy who kissed good and was clean. Anyway, fast forward a bit to me having a promise ring, and suddenly he became this insane, jealous schmuck. My guy friends couldn't hug me. He would show up at my school. I was a senior in high school and he was 20, to walk to my next class to make sure other guys weren't looking or talking to me. The final straw was when he showed up at my friend's house, red-faced with anger at me for not telling him I was going out. I basically told him to shove his jealous act up his bum. Gave him back his ring and didn't answer any phone calls or messages for months. He finally agreed to meet me at a local coffee place and explained to him what was going on. Apparently, he thought he was being chivalrous. I told him he was being a jealous schmuck and that obviously this wasn't going to work if he couldn't trust me. We tried again a few years later, but he was still a control freak. Last I heard, he's married to an ex-girlfriend who cheated on him. Has a kid with her and also has 2 other kids from 2 other women. I think I dodged a bullet with this one. Yeah, not as crazy as other stories, but I tend to go for real chill guys. Story 34. So there's this boy I really wanted to date. He was really short, really small in general, had some health problems growing up, which led to some crazy insecurities and mental issues. I wanted to date him, and after spending the night at my place one night, not intimacy, just cuddling, it was high school, asked him if he wanted to be exclusive. When he said no, I backed off, even as friends, giving myself some room so we could be cool later. He freaked out and called me like every day. After a few months where I would see him and talk to him sporadically, I invited him up to my college to just hang out. I warned him in advance that my new boyfriend would be there. After meeting him, he proceeded to run outside, sobbing. I couldn't find him and was horrified, so I just waited inside. Eventually, he called, saying he needed to get back in and that he tried to sleep outside on a bench without a jacket, but it was too cold. November in Baltimore. This is like 2 hours later. He's still sobbing. He proceeded to flop face down in my bed and sob all night while I slept in my roommate's bed directly next to him. The next day, he wrote ridiculous aim-away messages about how his life was ruined. Also, he wrote me a note on my desktop where he detailed his attempts to sleep on the bench outside. We haven't spoken since. Story 35. After moving to the same city as him to go to school, he created a fake person who phoned me and threatened me. This resulted in me running to him since he was the only person I knew since it was my first few weeks of university in a new city. When I figured out it was him, he denied it. And we broke up, but he stalked me, broke into my Facebook and my sister's, my emails account, and even sent himself an email from me saying I wanted to get back together with him so his parents didn't think it was crazy. He did all sorts of crazy things and then attempted to end it all. Thankfully, he was unsuccessful, but his parents denied that there was anything wrong with him at the time. He continued to stalk and pester me for months. Thankfully, now I'm 100% more appreciative of everything my wonderful boyfriend does for me. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.